Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. And it's time to ramble on again. So I mentioned I met this old guy in Japan named Taka, and I met him on a bridge or near a bridge. I was sitting on a wall, eating some sashimi as I often do in the afternoon, and he said hello, and he'd seen me a few times, and his English was good enough that we shared a short conversation, and he said he likes to drink whiskey in the afternoons and invited me over to his place, and we had some whiskey, and actually I think I had a lemon sour that first day because I've been having so many seltzers while I'm in Japan, but he had his whiskey highball, and then he invited me to come back the next day because there's like a couch surfing type of a group for bomb shower bicycling something. And I don't know anything about it. This is the first I've heard of it, but apparently it's a long running thing that bike packers can connect to hosts on a bomb shower, something called bomb shower. I guess it's the website. And if you need a house to sleep in between 2 points that are very far away from each other, that's how you can do it. So it's like couch surfing for bike packers, as far as I understood it when Taco was explaining it to me. And he's been doing it for a long time, like 15 years or something. And he mentioned a couple French people were going to show up the next day, and he invited me to go to the dinner party with them and just meet them and hang out. He likes hosting, I guess. But it's funny because he's kind of crotchety. He does complain about his guests like a lot, but he's fun to talk to, and it's a good time to hang out anyway. So I said yeah, because I've been doing a bunch of podcast and solo hobby stuff, so it was good to get the invitation to do something sociable. So I showed up the next day. He was already ready. I didn't know if I would be getting up early enough to join him for a supermarket trip, but it turns out he went before I arrived. But he still needed to take his dog out for a walk and asked me if I could take out the dog. And so I did, and it was great. It was a fun little walk. And then when we got back, me and Taka started sipping on our drinks, but the French people showed up a bit late and didn't offer any strict time of when they would be showing up after their appointment had passed, I guess. And so Taka finally went out to go do something, and of course the two French bikepackers showed up 5 minutes after he did. And I was just hanging out in Taka's home, and I didn't even know where Taka went, actually. So I looked around outside, and one of the bikepackers like started bowing and saying "Ohayo gozaimasu" or "Konnichiwa," and then she saw that I was, one, not Taka, and two, not Japanese at all. And I was like, "Hey, he just went out a minute ago. I'm not sure where he went or if I'm supposed to invite you in because it's not my house." But then I thought about it, and I was like, "Well, he invited you here, and he told me you were coming, and he is cooking chicken for you guys, so just come on in." And then Taka showed up, I don't know, 5-10 minutes later. I made some drinks for the French bike packers, and we just talked until Taka got back. I'm still not sure where he went, actually. But when he showed up, they started eating, and they were quite hungry, and we were all drinking, and it was a pretty fun time overall. French people are very precious about their language. Like, they don't like other people speaking their language, which is pretty rare in general. Like, I have not been to many countries where people don't want you to speak their language. They would just rather you don't speak it. But I've met, and I haven't been to France yet, but I have met more than my fair share of French people while traveling. And not every one, but much more common than speakers of other languages. French people make a point that they don't want to hear people try to speak French. Seems like a prideful habit of theirs. They seem like a prideful people. So when the dog came in, I was like, Xian, Xian, right? That's French for dog. She's like, yeah, yeah. But before that, I guess I said it just to be contrary, because I learned to speak a little bit of French when I was in Morocco. They speak French there as a former colony, and I was pretty bad at it, so I didn't continue it. And then I was going to study French, but then I found out how few people actually spoke French. It's not a very popular language, so I stopped studying it so much. But one of the first things that they said, maybe it was about a host or something, I can't remember, but the two bikepackers showed up. Okay, the sequence of events. So Taka left to go outside. The two bikepackers show up. I invite them inside, give them a couple drinks, and we start talking. And one of the very first things they said before I spoke any French or anything was just the girl mentioned that she doesn't like it when people try to speak French. And they were young, so that might be part of it too, like early 30s. And I don't know, as soon as she said that, I was like, the only people I ever hear say that are French people who are like, just please don't use our tongue. We prefer you to speak English or anything not French. But despite that, it was very fun hanging out with them, and they had stories of where they were going, and they were interested in going all around East Asia especially, and I've been to East Asia especially, so I had plenty of advice I could give them, and just general travel stuff that they didn't know about, and I gave them Wikivoyage and just a whole bunch of pointers, like you can use VPNs in China, the trains are great, just all this stuff that they had no idea about China. And China's really difficult compared to other countries because everything is Chinese in China. There's no Airbnb. You have to use their trip.com or Ctrip or something. There's so many, almost everything has a copy of it made in China for Chinese people. So all of the stuff they're used to, like Google and all that kind of stuff, they won't be able to use over there. But if you have a VPN, you can still use a bunch of it. They talk about canceling all VPNs in China, but I don't know. I've been there however many times for the decades since they said all VPNs are blocked, and VPNs always work there when I visit. We'll see how it is this visit. And China has just opened up a little more. They're allowing a bunch of country citizens to stay for 10 days visa-free, which is wild. I never thought I would see the day where that happened, where China became like a transit tourist destination. That's pretty interesting. So we just talked about their route and how they would survive in China, and Taka complained about China a lot. He was in his cups well before the rest of us because he was drinking whiskey, and the rest of us were on like beer or plum wine mixed with a little bit of shochu. So his alcohol percentage was double everybody else's at least. So after a couple hours, he just started railing against China and how Japan and China don't like each other and how dirty China is. And then the French people would be like, is it really that bad? I was like, not really, especially not these days, but they certainly don't like each other. But it was okay because my Japanese was good enough that I could kind of... Taka's English isn't super great, and then they were French, so their English is their second language as well. So whenever there was a miscommunication, often I understood Taka's English well enough because I'm good at deciphering accents that I could sometimes ask him in Japanese to confirm, and then I could translate into English what he meant for the French backpackers into English. And that felt really good to be a sort of translator for this crew. And it was a fun dinner party. It was just a big old drinky dinner party. They had this steamed chicken that Taka was making, and he put in a bunch of vegetables. Taka also only eats sashimi and sushi. He doesn't like meat or vegetables, like of any other kind. And so he always said that. So he was like, all right, yeah, eat the mushrooms. And the French bikepackers were like, oh, do you want some? He's like, no, I hate vegetables. You eat them. Or when the chicken was done, like, oh, do you want some chicken? He's like, no, I don't like chicken. I only eat fish. And he was pretty drunk, so he said that probably like 20 times throughout the dinner party. It was a pretty fun time, and it was just a raucous dinner party, and these guys were hungry and cold, so they were happy to be full and inside a warm house. Taka wanted some ice cream after a while, so he decided to play John Po, and whoever won John Po, or whoever lost John Po, had to go get the ice cream for everybody else. And I lost. So I asked what everybody wanted, and they told me, and I went to the convenience store down the street and got everybody ice cream, and it was pretty fun to walk back with a big armful of ice cream and see everyone's faces light up when they got it. Man, those French bikepackers must not have eaten anything, because they were ravenous the whole time they were at the house. They were from some island, too, like south of France. They weren't from the mainland, I think. Or something like that. I don't know. We had a lot of plum wine and shochu. They brought plum wine, too, and Taka also hates plum wine. He only likes, like, whiskey and fish and doesn't eat or drink anything else. And when we ran out of plum wine, we cracked open their bottle of plum wine, kept eating or drinking plum wine mixed with shochu, which I liked a lot. I did not like the whiskey mixed with shochu very much. I don't like highballs too much myself, but the ume wine, the plum wine mixed with shochu, means it's a little bit stronger, but it's not so sweet because the shochu is mixed in. And we drank a bunch of that. We drank a whole bunch of that. And Taka, the first day I met him, which is only the day before this dinner party, had showed me his sword. He has like a faux samurai sword that he keeps on his coat rack that is mounted on the wall, and there's just a samurai sword on top of it, which is pretty great. And it's still sharp enough for sure, and it's heavy, but it's not a real samurai sword. But he's very proud of it. He showed me at the first day I met him, and then after this dinner party was in full swing, he took it off the wall and gave it to the French people to check out. And we all took pictures with the sword. Oh, and Taka hates Trump, and of course, every other country doesn't really like Trump, and I voted against Trump twice, so we had plenty of politics crap to talk about, and Taka turned on the news, and then we were all just watching, like, depressing news for 20 minutes. But it felt good. I felt kind of like I was half a host also, because Taka was already in his cups, and he didn't... It was clear he's sort of fed up. He's had too many guests at this point, and it's feeling more of a burden than a fun social interaction for him. So I was kind of steering the conversation. So even when the crappy news was playing, I would just ask them about their plans and keep the atmosphere a little more lively than depressing. And Taka, when he told me about his samurai sword, he was complaining about Chinese swords, and he's like, Chinese swords, very big, very heavy. Japanese sword is like a laser. And I thought that was the best. He was so emphatic and excited to talk about his samurai sword and how the superiority of Japanese swords over Chinese swords. And I thought it was really cool when he described Japanese swords as lasers. I was glad the French people asked me so many questions about China, because there's a lot they needed to know, and then it got me thinking, even though I was there, I don't know, a year ago or something, it's changing so crazy fast. Like, that country, their energy, their rail, their hygiene in general, like, it's just everything in China is changing, especially these days, so rapidly that it got me thinking about China. So when my friend said I should go visit him in a couple weeks, I thought, yeah, why don't I stop there for a few days and just see what it's like? Because it's been a while since I've been in that country, and I certainly wouldn't mind eating all the good food, and I can find out about these new, like, what else is different, since now they're letting 70 countries have visa-free transit in China for the first time. I wonder what other policy changes are different. And I'll say for WeChat, which is their version of WhatsApp, you can now add your credit card and use their QR payment system directly using your credit card. And it's a lot, too. It's like up to $10,000 per a year, or $9,000 US roughly per year. So you can yeah, there's a lot of advantage to be taken there. That's extremely useful that you can just use your card whenever you want to, your foreign card, which was definitely locked out of the system when I went to China before. You had to use local cards only. But apparently now that they're opening up, they've made it much easier. I hear you can also do it with Alipay, their other main payment system. But I have my card hooked up to my WeChat wallet now, and it was not very difficult to do. They have an English language version of their app. So the app in China is called Weixin, and then the English version is called WeChat. And it's very similar to WhatsApp, but it does a lot more. You can buy train tickets on there. There's a whole bunch of apps you can install in the WeChat app, so it's a multifunctional thing. But I didn't know the payment systems had integrated foreign cards, and I'm not sure when they did that, but they have, you just confirm your identity, add your card, and then you can use your card. You can't use it for giant purchases, but up to like 200 renminbi, it's feeless transactions. So that's huge. That's a lot of places. Most foods are going to be well under 200 renminbi. And a bunch of stuff that they sell is only going to be 5 or 4 renminbi, which is usually, it's a pain to like transact for those. But now I can use my Feeless credit card, and yeah, I have an instant wallet, which I haven't had since I had a bank account in China. I don't have to do that, which I was so happy to find out, because it is such a pain to open a bank account and just go to the bank. It's not even like very difficult. It's just takes forever. The bureaucracy in China is burdensome. So I just didn't want to have to go to the bank at all. And now it turns out I don't. Also, the Japanese SIM card says it works in China. I am so curious to try that out. It says it works in Korea also. So I'm going to try it in Korea and in China over the next couple weeks, and I'm very excited to try that. The only thing, I finally have this SIM card that's supposed to work in a bunch of countries, and the only place it doesn't work is like most of Africa, and I was thinking of going there soon, but I know I'm going to be thinking about the SIM card that I just think is so cool that I can use in all the different countries. It doesn't have a phone number, but it's data only, and that's usually what I get anyway. And it's cheap as heck. Like for 1 month, 3 gigabytes of data, which I just get because you actually have unlimited data. It's just really slow after you use up. So you can top up if you want, but it's like $3. It's something, or $4 maybe, but that's for 30 days of unlimited data, and however much you want. For $4, it's 3 gigabytes of premium data, and it's like $20 for 30 gigabytes or something. It's a very good plan, and especially, I'm so excited to see if it works in Korea. If it also works in Korea and China like it says it should, I mean, that's going to be one of the coolest things I've got in a long time. That'll be extremely useful for me. It also says it works in the US, so when I go back and visit people, I can still use this little same SIM card, apparently. Very excited to try it out. So just by talking to these French bikepackers, I was able to think about and then look into a whole bunch of stuff considering travel in China that I hadn't thought about in a while, and it was really interesting to look into all that stuff, especially since I have the travel community and this podcast. There's more stuff to learn and talk about. Oh, I saw a ton of shooting stars that night because it was like the new moon. So there was no moon in the sky for almost 3 nights, and I saw so many shooting stars. On the second night, I think I saw 7 in a row, which is crazy. One of them was huge. One of them was like dime-sized. Like it was a large orange, fiery racing across the sky. That was the biggest one I saw, but I saw a ton. The skies are so dark here, and there's so little light pollution. I thought it would be great to go out and see if I can see shooting stars. And immediately upon going out, I saw my first one. And I just walked around with my head up, staring at the sky, and I kept seeing more and more shooting stars, and it was the coolest. Love stars, love shooting stars, love the night skies. It was a really Fun walk, fun time. When I left the dinner party, it was getting late. I didn't want to stay too long, and I was like, okay, if these guys show up and they're terrible, then I can just leave at 8 or whatever. And if we have fun, then I can leave a little at 10. But if I stay too long, then I'm going to be keeping them up. So if me and Taka are just drinking while they want to go to bed and are tired. So around like 9:30ish, because we were all having a fun time, I decided to take my leave, and it sounds like the dinner party wound down a bit after that. And I started looking into all the payment systems and the transit visa-free things in China, and I just walked around under the stars. What a fun night. And it felt good because I was sociable, which so many of my hobbies are solo. It's nice to be sociable now and then. And it was funny because me and Taka were talking like we were old friends, like we knew each other so well. And I think someone commented on it, and then Taka was like, oh, I met him yesterday. No, we just became friends recently. And that was also cool. And when I left, I said, Oyasumi nasai, which is the Japanese good night. And that was pretty cool. Yeah, there's this big bridge I came across, and I just stopped in the middle of the bridge at 2 a.m. or something, no moon in the sky, and stared up and saw. That was the day I saw 7 shooting stars in total. It was including that really big fiery one. It was pretty late in the night, and I thought to myself, well, you know what? I'll just look for one more before I go, and then after one more shooting star. And like basically while I was thinking that, another one whipped by me, and I was like, all right, I guess it's time to go now. There is a bicycle. So there's like 6 bicycles outside of Matsuyama in one of the little towns. And there's this big bicycle rack, and then there's 6 bicycles that never move, and they look old and crappy and are broken down. And I thought the sign originally said you can borrow these bicycles, but that's not what it says. It says, like, lock up your bicycles, be careful. But after seeing the same 6 bicycles unlocked in the same place, all on the left side, like, sort of together in the corner of the bike rack, I thought, you know what? Maybe these are just discarded bikes that anybody can use. And of those 6 bikes, most of them, some of them didn't work at all. Like one of the chain was broken, and most of their tires weren't pumped, but one of them had 2, like, mostly pumped up tires, and it looked old and crappy, but it worked. It pedaled, and the chain held up. So I decided to take the bicycle after dark and ride up to this curry house I saw one day that was pretty far away in Imabari, in another town, another city, I guess. And I thought it would just be fun to go up the coast from Matsuyama to Imabari. And it was far, but it was worth getting there because the curry house actually turned out to be an izakaya, which is like a pub that has food and drinks. And there was a huge raucous party going on inside, and I was a little nervous to go inside at first. But as soon as I got inside, 2 guys got up and gave me their little table they were sitting at so I could sit down and eat and drink. And one of the guys turned around to me and we started talking, and I spoke really crappy Japanese, but he understood me when I did say it, and I sometimes understood him. We used the Google Translate a few times, but I had like an okay, really basic Japanese conversation with this local, and it turns out they're all parts of an acrobatic troupe in Imabari, and he showed me a picture of him holding his 7-year-old son on his head on the top of a pyramid, like a human pyramid. And his son was like the top of the pyramid. It was pretty crazy to see that. And it was fun. The beer was good. I got a giant beer. The curry, the black curry that was advertised, was super good, strong, tasty curry. But the gyoza? Oh no. So people gave me takoyaki as a gift, which I didn't realize. I thought we were all sharing it, so I just had one takoyaki. And then they were like, oh, he didn't eat the takoyaki we gave him. And I hadn't realized it was just for me. The takoyaki was fine. I don't like takoyaki that much because there's not a lot of taco. There's not a lot of octopus in the octopus balls. It's usually just like a bready. But anyway, they were fine. The problem was the gyoza. Holy crow. This Imabari Izakaya gyoza was the worst gyoza I have ever had. And probably the worst thing I've eaten in Japan the whole time I've been here, because I've mostly been eating great food. But it was shockingly bad. And I tried my hardest to eat like imagine, it was soaked in oil. So it was, and the vegetables tasted it completely bland, but it was like droopy, wet, soggy with oil. It was so gross. Like, blah, blah. But I ate like some of it, so it didn't look so bad. And the curry was super good, so I ate that with gusto, and I even dipped some of the gyoza into the curry to try and choke down a couple of the gyoza so the shop owner didn't feel bad because she was being very kind. But I couldn't believe it when she served me the gyoza. When I ate one piece and I was like, is this really as soggy as it looked? I almost gagged because it was so soggy with oil. Ew, gross. I don't even want to talk about it. Anyway, that was terrible. But the conversation I had with my new acrobat friends was pretty fun. And even though my Japanese was extremely limited and I hardly understood anything they were asking, everybody was nice. It was a fun atmosphere. And I got to ride the bicycle up there. So I felt good all over. And then I took the bicycle back on home after. Someone had put a half bag of rice and I think a bicycle lock in my basket of the bicycle. And maybe that was supposed to be a gift, but I was confused and I was like, oh, these aren't mine, and just gave them to one of the people in the pub. And they were like, okay. Yeah, that was bizarre. I just remembered that. You know what? Was that the same day? After that izakaya, that might have been the same day. There was a ramen house across the... No, I went to the ramen house a different time, and they had good ramen. That's the whole story. But it was cool. Okay, never mind. That's not the whole story. That ramen house that I went to has low, like, table... So it's like a raised platform, and then there's tables on that raised platform, and you just sit on a cushion with your legs under the table, just sitting cross-legged under the table, which I like that a lot more than sitting in a chair. I have for a long time. I'm either standing or I'm sitting on the floor. I don't find chairs as comfortable as either standing or sitting on the floor. Like when I'm recording these podcasts, I'm almost always, my laptop is on a low table and I'm just sitting in front of it with the microphone. So I think that seating arrangement is so cool. So I wanted to stop at that restaurant, and it was very fun to eat my ramen at one of those little traditional tables. It was a fun little time. What else was going on? I got some whiskey for Taka, not because he needs it, but because so many people had shown up, and he always talked to me. He was like, hosting is nice, but they're so messy and it always costs so much because I have to pay for their food. And I seeing how much these bikepackers ate, I was kind of surprised at how much he was providing a lot as a host. So when I went to the supermarket next, I thought I should buy him a bottle of whiskey to make up for all of the whiskey that we all drank out of his bottle. And I gave him a gift of a big ol' bottle of whiskey. And he seemed appreciative of that. And then after I gave him the bottle, he invited me to go to an izakaya with him down in another town called Iohojo. And so that's like 2 stops outside of Matsuyama or something. And I haven't been taking the train a lot. So I thought that would be fun, and, well, that'll take a long time to explain. I'll talk about that on the next episode. Yeah, we can end it on whiskey bottle gift, and then I get invited to an izakaya in Iohojo. The acrobat troupe was surprised at how popular curry was back in the States. They thought it was more of a Japanese thing and didn't realize that we have, like, Koku Ichibanya, like the famous curry house in the United States. In California, there's a bunch, and in Hawaii. And they were very excited to find out that Japanese curry, it's a popular curry brand, like a chain of restaurants, Koko Ichibanya in Japan. So no one in Japan's going to be like, oh, it's the best curry in Japan. But it's a popular restaurant, and Japanese people, very unlike the French people who want to safeguard their culture and their language, Japanese people, like many other countries, are ecstatic to find out that their culture is exported or popular in other countries. So it was fun telling them that, like, Koko Ichibanya was in the U.S. and Daiso, it was my favorite store, and that's in the U.S. too. And the whole Acrobat troupe was like, wow, Daiso's in the U.S.? I didn't even... And I'm like, yeah, and it's my favorite store. I get my neck pillow and all my little gadgets. Daiso's a great place. So thanks for coming along this stroll down memory lane. I'll talk about my trip out with the local to izakayas and snack bars, which are weird. Hope you're having a great day. You can talk to me at bitofarambler@gmail.com, bitofarambler, all one word, and bitofarambler on Blue Sky and Lemmy. Hope things are going your way. I will talk to you soon.